ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधाकान्ता नमोऽस्तु ते। तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नम ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्यता दिशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे रामा राम राम हरे हरे। Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you so much for joining today. So, in fact, when I was listening to the Narottam Das Thakur's song, which some of you have said is very beautiful, this reminds me of a very recent. Recently, I was listening to Srila Prabhupada's lecture in I think it was May 1973, and he was giving a talk on Canto 1. In chapter 10 and verse 20. So in this, Krishna is referred to as the Uttama Shloka, or the Uttama Shloka, or is really the shloka that takes you beyond darkness. Uttama is is transcendental, and Tama is ignorance. So Krishna has Krishna's name is, and his songs are so transcendental that they help you to like free yourself from ignorance. And very interestingly, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that uh, all the songs, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he had mentioned that he's a very learned Goswami. So he mentioned that Narottam Das Thakur's like songs are so blissful that they are as good as the Vedic mantras. So, Dharmendra Prabhu, thank you so much, because you were giving us a treat, which is even more, beneficial than the Vedic mantras if you want to listen to them. So, thank you so much for that. So, so today we are going to be, discussing, a very interesting chapter. And as I was, doing some, research on this and doing some reflections, I felt that it's, very, very relevant to us. And I've got a presentation which I will walk us through, and we'll also make this available to you should you want to refer to it. So I think Dharmendra Prabhu, you may have to make me a co-host. Thank you for promoting me, Dharmendra Prabhu. Please join me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are going to talk today, explore Canto 6, Chapter 17. Mother Pārvatī curses Citraketu. A few months ago, when I did this particular class, that was probably many months ago, and I may not remember. So I spoke about the stories being at three levels. So Srimad Bhagavatam's pastimes are so powerful that we can understand the story as we like unpack like the essence layer by layer. So there are three levels. I don't know if anyone remembers what those three levels were, because it's mentioned by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Does anybody want to take a guess? It was many months ago, so if you don't remember, that's perfectly fine. But he said there were three levels. What were those? So we learn so well by stories. So I will not keep the suspense anymore. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, whom you know, is a very eloquent speaker, and he can really engage the audience. He said that there are three levels at which you can really understand any story, and definitely like any pastime that you have from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the first one is literal, and in literal, what happens is uh, you just see what happens. So it's really something that's any events that are happening, and every story has like a kind of a drama uh, or or characters, like, and there is a battle of good versus evil, etc. So you enjoy the story, and then typically what you do is when you enjoy the story, you typically are doing that for entertainment. So whether it's a cultural program, whether it's a movie that you watch, you're basically like doing that for the purpose of entertainment. Then the next level, as you want to go a little deeper, is the ethical and the metaphorical. So you could leave at the literal level itself, but if you want to really go deeper and understand what they mean, then you start thinking about what are some of the moral behaviors that are being discussed here. And this particular chapter has got quite a number of them, actually. So and we'll go through that. So it really is around what are the moral and how to, and really looks at edification. And the second one is around understanding what are some of the universal principles, so that you can start developing intellectual understanding of what the story is really telling us. And the third is really, which is transcendental. So you can also like have a look at the transcendental part. And this is when, magic really happens. And this is when you really start connecting the story and, what the story really says with connecting and loving Krishna. And the effect of that will be pure devotion. So whenever we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, if we can really keep this in mind, so like many of us, like read even if it's a few minutes a day, try to look at like each of the stories at three levels. One is at a literal level, so you enjoy the story, nothing wrong in that. But as a devotee, what you do want to do is also not just stop at that, but really want to go to the ethical and metaphorical, and that's when you start looking at how does it relate to me, and what are some of the changes, what's it really, what is the story really telling me. And then using that knowledge, you will really start like developing and strengthening your love for Krishna. So, and today what I'll do is I will like help us like look at this particular chapter at three levels. And I have a few slides, and I'll talk about the literal level, then we can probably stop and ask for any questions, then ethical, metaphorical. And I'll really invite you to like participate quite actively in this, because I can see there are lots of devotees, and I would if we would love to hear your comments on some of these. So Mother Pārvatī curses Citraketu. So it's always good, when because when Srimad Bhagavatam, when we want to really read a particular chapter, it's always good to get a sense of where we are, because it's so deep. It's got 18,000 verses, and it's quite easy for us to lose the connection. So it's always good to step back a little bit and look at what the last three chapters have been. So just a very quick refresh of that. So it'll be, so you'll see that in chapter 14. there is an aspect of Citraketu's suffering and longing for a son. And then this is the time when you see him, like being distressed. And then you also know that, Sage Angira, like he grants him a son, but then, who later dies. So there is a clear, like at this particular point of time, Chitraketu is really suffering, and he does get a son, but then the son dies. So there is a aspect of deep grief, with which which is experienced by Chitraketu. And then as we move on to chapter 15, we see that he's met by the spiritual masters Angira and Narad. And what they do is they reveal the truth to him, and then they also initiate him. So they preach, deep spiritual wisdom. And this is when Chitraketu is also initiated into chanting the mantra of Lord Narayana. And that's when then we move on to chapter 16, which is the chapter just before chapter 17. And in this, Chitraketu has been chanting the mantra for 7 days. And then the Lord grants him a vision and a personal darshan, which is very, very special. And then he's blessed with spiritual knowledge. And where we start this particular chapter is that Chitraketu is a perfect devotee, and he gains a celestial airplane, which is gifted to him by by Lord Narayana. So this is where we start off. And as we look at this, even this journey that Chitraketu has gone through, so there is an aspect of suffering, acute suffering, because when when your like a child dies, like there can't be anything more painful than that. So it's really grief at its most intense. And then he meets spiritual master, like exalted personalities like Sage Angirya and Narada Muni. And that again is the Lord's way of blessing Chitraketu, and that's how he gets initiated. And then the Lord himself comes and shares his vision. And from then on, he becomes a perfect devotee. So that's where we are when we start off this chapter. So moving on to the literal parts. So I have like split this up into verses, and because of the specific topics that they cover. So the first one is and this is when Chitraketu has been traveling for millions of years. So he's spending time with in the heavenly planets. He's touring around, and he's like singing the hymns of the Lord. So he's really like in a very, very happy, joyful mood. And while he's traveling on his divine plane, he comes to he comes to like Sumeru, Mount Sumeru, and that's where he sees Lord Shiva and Parvati. Now, this is it's quite an interesting thing, because there are lots of sages, great sages, and in the midst, like we have Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati, and Parvati is seated on his lap, and that's the that's what he glimpses. And what he feels is like this in when he speaks as well. So we know that like Lord Shiva is the master of the of the material world. So he's the most exalted personality, and he's a renunciate. So then he's a bit surprised to see this public display of affection, because typically you do not show that like especially in front of the great sages, and he just wonders. And that prompts him to go to yeah, so he starts like joking with Lord Shiva, and he starts speaking in a somewhat playful like tone. And when you read the verses, you can see exactly the tone in which he speaks to like someone as exalted as Lord Shiva. So he also questions how can this the Adi yogi can really sit so openly before the sages. And then it doesn't have any malice. It doesn't really. He's not doing that with a bad intent. He's doing that with an intent of friendly criticism. And please do keep this in mind, because when we look at the ethical and the metaphorical, we can always come back to like how he's giving this criticism. The response to Chitraketu's, outburst is that Lord Shiva, he hears him, but he remains really calm. So he doesn't really, get troubled, he doesn't take any offense. So, and a lot of it is because he also understands that Chitraketu is, is a pure devotee. But uh, Mother Parvati, she feels that she wonders who's Chitraketu. I mean, he's a low, Kshatriya. He's not even, I mean, Lord Shiva is someone that even Lord Brahma and everyone and the demigods, they worship. So how can really, Chitraketu, take on a role like this? And it seems that he's very, very arrogant, and Mother Parvati is angered. And out of that, she thinks that he's very arrogant, he's very proud, and then he curses him to fall from his elevated position. But very interestingly, she also, when she curses him, she also uses the word "my dear son." So, and that's also quite informative, because even if you have a curse, you still acknowledge that he is a devotee of a pure devotee of the Lord. And then you can see that verses 22 to 26, where Chitraketu humbly accepts. So he had an option of getting angered, and he could have, the response to the curse could have been very different, because he is a pure devotee, and he could have, potentially, even, got angry himself. But we see that Chitraketu humbly accepts her curse, and in fact, the first thing he does is to offer prayers and says, "Dear mother, I accept your curse." And from there, Parvati starts, really, having a change. So he expresses that he sees everything as the will of the Lord. So what he said is, and this is, the most important part of this particular chapter, where, he discusses about the qualities of the Lord, about how nothing in this world can really, be done without, the Lord, and it's the material energy that's really at play, and how, and he also describes, the duality, which is happiness and distress. And he also says that as a pure devotee, one has to be equanimous. So it's, some very interesting, references which are beneficial for us. Then verses 27 to 33, this is when Lord Shiva speaks to Mother Parvati. And by then, Chitraketu has gone away. So he's, he makes his humble acceptance, and he moves. So this is the time, and you can imagine, like all the great sages are there. Um, Everyone is astonished at what Chitraketu said, because they didn't really expect him to do it. Definitely not after he's heard Mother Parvati utter a curse to him. And then the entire gathering is very silent, and that's when like Lord Shiva speaks to Parvati, and everybody listens to him. So he says that true devotees are equipoised, as we spoke about. So it doesn't matter whether whether you're affected by honor or dishonor, because he knows that everything is really the will of the Lord. And then he takes a very equanimous like attitude towards suffering. And there are a couple of verses. I mean. Phrases that are quite relevant, which I'll pick up a bit later. So there is the aspect, the qualities of Narayana Para, and what are the qualities of those who are fully devoted to the Supreme Lord. So they are, they fully surrender to Him. And then towards the end, so then we have the the sages, and even the sages are witnessing all of this. So they have been completely silent, like at this entire exchange between like Chitraketu, Mother Parvati, and Lord Shiva. So they witness this, and then that also creates a lot of opportunity for them to reflect, and they see how now they can see Chitraketu in a very different light, as compared to how we started the chapter. So they really respect him for his humility, etc. And then finally, and this is when Sukadeva Goswami, he says, he speaks about in Chitraketu's future and transitions. So after that, Citraketu is destined to be Vritasura, which you would have seen in the previous chapters from 12 to 16, if I'm not mistaken. And so he was born in a powerful in a demon family, but he's still a pure devotee. So and he mentioned that even if you can be a pure devotee, because you're in this material world, you can actually have a fall. But then the question that we need to ask ourselves, which we will try to unpack a bit later, is it really a fall of Chitraketu? The curse, and for him to come back to come back as a demon, or whether it's part of a much larger plan that the Lord had for Chitraketu is really a question that I just wanted to leave you with. And the way this chapter ends is very beautifully. It just praises like pure devotion, and you could see that the circumstances were quite adverse from the initial time where he suffered because he lost his son, and then he got attracted to the Mahamantra through the spiritual exalted personalities, and then and then he had a personal vision of the Lord, and then that's what like leads to this particular pastime actually. Any questions on this? So this is just like a literal one, but any quick reflections before we move on? So right now what we've done is we covered the literal part, and now we are going to unpack the ethical and the metaphorical.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. You can accept my humble dispenses or go to Shura Prabhupada.
Hare
Yes,
Krishna,
Prabhuji,
Mataji.
your last question is about Citraketu. So the Lord wanted him back to his abode because Citraketu had known the enjoyment and the suffering. So now the Lord wanted to take him back to his abode. That's why he was cursed by Pārvatī Mata.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. And yes, I mean, and we will come to that. It was all part of the Lord's plan. So, and that's also a reflection for us. So, whenever we encounter suffering, is it really because the Lord wants to punish us, or is it because there is a larger plan that He has got for us? And we will, we will touch upon this. Just a bit later. So thank you, Indulekha Mataji. So I've got a few ethical, dilemmas, so to speak, because we do have dilemmas many a time. So the first ethical dilemma is Chitraketu, was he really wrong to comment on Shiva? Because Shiva is like the lord of the material universe. He's the Adi Yogi. He's the most exalted personality. He rules, the material world. So I mean, could anyone even think of commenting and laughing at Shiva? And this is coming from someone who's not even like a demon or asura, but it's someone who's like a spiritual, who's a spiritual devotee. Who's a pure devotee. So was it really dharmic to do so? And then the question is, because we are in the material world, even the most exalted personalities, could get influenced by the three modes of material nature, by the by which is the inferior energy of the Lord. And it's quite possible that we may do things which are not very characteristic of of a pure devotee. So and the lesson for us is, when we as a devotee, when we are aspiring, we are so far away from Chitraketu, but as we are aspiring towards becoming a devotee, let's ask ourselves, when we speak, or do we speak with sensitivity to the other person, and do we speak with an intent to cause hurt, or do we not have any malified intentions? Really something to just keep in mind. And something that just I do have some scriptural references to some of these. So satam prasangan mama virya samvido. So that's from Canto 3, like chapter 25, verse 25. And that says that association with the wise leads to truth, but wisdom must also come with compassion and tact. So going on to say that you could be on your journey to become, like a devotee, a pure devotee, but then that has always to be tempered with compassion and diplomacy. So the second dilemma is Mother Parvati's reaction. So she also knew that he is a pure devotee. And she also saw Lord Shiva's reaction, which was about just smiling. But she felt that he was very arrogant. So and she felt very offended. So the question is, was her reaction justified or excessive? And I don't know what your thoughts are actually on that. I don't know what you picked up, but I think many of us might feel that way. That I mean, because being cursed to come back as a demon when you're a pure devotee is could be like one of the most abominable curses that you can inflict on someone. But then, as Indulekha Mataji pointed out, like that was a that was a reason for that. Geeta Mataji,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I was just wondering, Prabhuji, when he was advised by the spiritual masters and then he was initiated, he was with all these things, how could he laugh at the situation? That's what I'm wondering, Prabhuji. Because he would have not done so, and he could have asked why such a thing is happening here. Instead of asking whatever his doubts were, he laughed at Shiva and Parvati. And that's what I'm a bit confused, Prabhuji.
Okay, no problem. Um, Thank you for the question. Charu Rasika Mataji, did you want to comment on Geeta Mataji's question, or
No,
did you have a
no, I
different
was
point?
just saying that on the dilemma that Parvati feels deeply offended and curses Citraketu. So we have seen in the past, like Parvati is nothing but like Durga or Maya Devi, and so now she also works under the control of the Lord. So it is by the will of the Lord that she is acting in that way.
Absolutely, Charamataji. Yeah. So nothing happens without any action, because even the demigods, however exalted, however powerful they are, cannot really act unless unless there is the Lord's sanction. So as Indulekha Mataji also mentioned, so after having spent these millions of years in a very blissful state, Chitra Ketu was still, I mean, although he was having a very blissful life, he was singing the pastimes of the Lord, he was still in the material world. And as Indulekha Mataji, mentioned, it was really the Lord felt that it was time for him to come back to the spiritual world, and that's why he's created this entire circumstances that leads to Mother Parvati to curse Chitraketu. So I'll just so thank you, Charu Mataji. So Geeta Mataji, I just had a point, and then we'll go to Sadhvi Mataji. Um, was he right in doing that? Was he wrong in doing that? So, and that's explained by by what he says to Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati, because he says that as a pure devotee, I he is influenced by by the modes of material nature, and whether it's happiness or distress. So even the fact that he laughed is also something that he could not have done himself. It was because he was influenced by the inferior energy of the Lord. So there is and and that's where like Maya and the three modes of material nature can be so powerful, because even someone like a pure devotee can still get deluded into doing something which is not completely right. So he may be a pure devotee. He could have been instructed by like Narad Muni and Sage Angira, but he's still in the material world, and he's still influenced by the three modes of material nature, and there is still a propensity for him to make mistakes as he did. But then that mistake is part of a larger plan, because the Lord arranged for him to say that, so that Mother, like Parvati, cursed him, so that he, gets born as, in the demonic family, and so that he gets liberation. So it's important to really understand, the entire, cycle, and then see how this particular episode and Chitraketu laughing at Lord Shiva, like really, comes in the entire chain. So it's all created by the Lord. So Chitraketu is not the doer. That's the final thing. So he's being influenced by the by the three modes. Does it answer your question, Geeta Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji, I put it in the chat actually. Yes, it answered my
Okay.
question. Thank you very
Okay.
much, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So I'm not unable to see the chat. So that means if you
Okay.
do see any chat questions, just let me know. So Sadhvi Mataji,
Hare Krishna.
Hare
And thank you
Krishna.
very, very much for today's class. I how to say it, so that I say it right. In today's life, it happens sometimes someone laughs at someone in some situation where this laugh is actually like admiring laugh. It's not laugh to disturb or to laugh to do something ugly. You know what I mean? It's admiring, laughing with admiring. And that's something that if someone is such as Pārvatī, she is a very intelligent woman. And she knows that Citraketu is a very pure person also. And still she reacted in that way. And what I wonder, if she reacted that way, so then it means it's much, much worse now in our life, in this illusion life, that people can react in someone's laugh in unnecessary way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, Mataji. And again, you raise some very important points. And both Chitraketu as a pure devotee and Mother Parvati being a very powerful, personality, um, have still committed. Like one has laughed and the other has, shown anger. So, but they're not really acting, by themselves. They're being, so they are influenced by by the Lord's inferior energy, and that's how they perform those activities. So it's good to remind ourselves that whatever we do, um, we can't say that we are the doers. So when Mother Parvati curses, she's doing that because she gets that energy from the Lord, because the Lord sanctions her to do it. And similarly, when Chitraketu laughs at Lord Shiva, then he's not doing it himself. So it's the Lord who's sanctioning him to do it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mataji. Kirtida Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Just two clarification, Prabhuji. One is that if everything is already, it means everything was already destined and written what meant to happen, right? So that's why the Chitraketu did this action and got the reaction as well. Is that correct?
Yes, you could, and of course, I think Prabhuji, you ask a question that can be a like a separate topic for discussion itself, like how much of it is like destined and how much of free will like does Chitraketu have. So yes, but yeah, but in essence, you're right. Yeah.
Okay, and the second clarification, Prabhuji, is that you just said that the Chitraketu was not the doer over here in this case, or obviously we are not the doers and everything happened for whatever reason, material nature and three modes of material natures. So why do we get karma if we are not the doers? Why do we accumulate karmas then?
That's a good question. So we may not be. So if you were to look at our actions, so like in the Gita, it says that we are not the only persons who are doing who are who are doing the actions. So it's us, it's Prakriti, and it's the Lord's sanction. So if the super soul like does not sanction something, that it cannot happen. But then you still have you still can make your choices, because we still have free will, to make choices. As an example, um, we are here. We have decided to come here. To the Learning Bhagavatam class. We had a choice not to be here as well, and do something else. We had a choice to 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 go to a movie, for example, or go to a restaurant. So that way, there is a certain amount of free will. So it's not that like the Lord has completely like made everything his. But what we have to recognize is that nothing really happens without the Lord's sanctions, and He also gives you what you desire, what you desire. So for example, if you really feel that I desire to like I desire to have a lot of good food all the time, then He will make that possible for you, because He's quite impartial. And but then whether that's good for you or not is what the karmic reactions are. So He doesn't so while He does sanction, but there is a element of free will. So we do have a choice, whether we want to do things, like the good deeds, or the wrong deeds. And that's where one of the chapters, we also like talk of it as the good dog and the bad dog. So there is a good dog and a bad dog within us, and depending on whom we want to nourish more, we can then see whether we perform mostly good acts, or whether we perform mostly like not so good acts. So it's really about yeah. So it's not that we do not have completely a free will. We do have it, but then the question is, we also have to acknowledge that unless the Lord sanctions, some of these things will not happen.
So in that case, Prabhuji, when we take birth and we do, or our whatever is destiny written, whatever is written in our life before, based on accumulated karmas and all those things, we get the birth and then do action, reaction, and take the next birth, right? So it's already been based on the previous life karmas accumulated. We got this human life. We all are fortunate that we did something in our previous life that we got human life, right? But in those, based on those life, that is written, okay, we get this human life, we do this thing, and based on this action or the previous reaction, will do something in the next life, better or bad, whatever it happens. So it's already been as per my understanding, it's already been written what meant to happen in this life. Whether we become devotee, it's part of our journey. If we don't become devotee, that's also part of our karmic reactions.
I think two things to keep, and then we will move on to Indulika Mataji. So one is that there is there is a desire, there is the your karmic reactions, and then there is a lot sanctions. So we have to see that there are a few things that are into play. So the first thing is really your desire, and the second thing is if we really are aspiring to become devotees, then we do need the Lord's mercy to help us come closer to Him. So unless He's merciful to us, it's going to be quite difficult for us to really understand Krishna, because He's quite inconceivable. And and probably the third thing to really keep in mind is that um, so we may go through like we may go through karmic reactions, etc. But then when we come as a human being, we have come to a elevated level of consciousness as compared to the other like animals, etc. So there is an opportunity that is given to us, and the question is, are we making the best use of the opportunity, or are we dissipating our life and again like just acting as animals, which is like eating, like defending, sleeping, etc. So he does give a choice. So you're right about the fact that we things are predestined, but then we also have an opportunity to make those choices, and he enables you to make those choices. So when we have a desire to know Him, then He will make arrangements for us to come closer to Him. But if we don't do that, then we'll constantly keep coming back again and again in this cycle, and we'll never be able to get rid of the karmic debts that we have been accumulating all these lifetimes.
Yeah, thank you. It is a very vast discussion topic, but yeah,
It is. It
it
is.
is indeed, yeah. So we will let Indu Mataji speak now. Thank you.
Sure. Indulika Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, sometimes we think that, okay, because we are in Krishna consciousness, we are perfect. But no, we have those desires. When we come to Krishna consciousness, our desires, they don't go away. They are dormant. They are kind of hibernating. And then they erupt at some point, which we cannot identify them. They are like, suppose I am envious of someone. Can anybody Can anybody experience that? It's only me. Or even I myself, I cannot experience it sometimes. I cannot recognize that I'm envious of someone because it's in there. It's so subtle. So King Citraketu also, he did not kind of laugh at Lord Shiva smilingly. And if you read the purport of Srila Prabhupada, it says that smilingly friendly he was telling Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva and Citraketu, they were friends. And so he was just jokingly, written jokingly and friendly. Now, Lord Shiva didn't react. Mother Pārvatī got angry. But she has her reason to get angry, right? But here, Lord Shiva didn't say anything. After they left, then Lord Shiva told Mother Pārvatī, oh, Citraketu had the capacity to curse back, counter curse, but he kept quiet. Again, we can say it's a plan of the Lord, but on the individual level, he could have reacted. But instead, he asked for forgiveness and he accepted the curse. So this is also, we should bear in mind that here his free will is in here as well. He could have reacted oppositely, but no, he accepted the curse. So Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhuji. Go ahead with your class.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, and thank you so much for your most interesting discussions, and please continue that. So I've got a couple of other ethical dilemmas, and the third one is Shiva's silence. So the question is, why did Shiva not defend himself? Because most of the time, if you're like a warrior, and if somebody is doing something which is not right, to you, then you were really defend yourself. So was he wise, or was he just I mean, was he just passive? So then this is where it's key to know that when you're encountered with criticism, like so directly coming in, even if it's friendly criticism, the question is how do you really take how do you really take that? So what Lord Shiva demonstrates here is a deep vairagya. So it's a detachment. So he's not really concerned about what Citraketu says. So he just smiles and he just he doesn't even avoid. He just smiles and he stays. It's not that he flees away from the situation, etc. And that's a very good learning for us as well. And there is also scriptural reference here, which from Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, which says Krishna does say that I envy no one and I'm not partial to anyone. And this is where it's good to remind ourselves that when you're really trying to become spiritually mature, you're trying to become more impartial. You're going to try to be more fair to everyone. So, and the fourth one is again, I think as we spoke about, should Citraketu accept an unfair curse? Because obviously he was just like doing it in zest. We all do it with our friends. I mean, I'm sure Arjuna, has done a lot of these zest, joking things with Krishna as the as his playmate. So should he accept an unfair curse or should he reject it? So we don't know whether it's fair or unfair. That's really something for us to reflect on. So then the question is, the lesson here is a true devotee doesn't really react with resentment, but he sees even hardship as divine arrangement. And a great example of this is, Mother Queen Kunti, because she would always, pray to Lord, Krishna to give her more suffering, so that she never forgets him. So this is called, Daiva Vyavastha, which means that this is divine intervention. So the entire episode that we are talking about today is nothing but an arrangement offered by the Lord. But it doesn't become very apparent to us because that understanding doesn't come because we look at things at a very, very literal level. So this was the ethical one, and now I'm just going to move on, to looking at metaphorical, and then we will move on to transcendental, just to kind of link up to all the three levels of the stories. So metaphor one. So when we look at the airplane, we can also look at it as an elevated mind, because if you read some of the first descriptors of Citraketu, how he's going through many heavenly planets, etc. You can see that that's a mind which is fully uplifted. It's full of the love for the Lord, pure devotion and wisdom. So good example. But then the moment he came to the curse, there was a bit of an ego pricking. So even if he had done all that, even even if he was in a very elevated state, but then he still fell down. So that's something to just remember as a lesson in humility. Then the second metaphor was around Shiva and Parvati. You could see how there was a very um, different response to the same situation. So there was Lord Shiva demonstrated detachment. So he was smiling when Chitraketu, was speaking to him. And Mother Parvati, she demonstrated, divine energy because she was very, very angry. So you could see that there was a very, very subtle, a very, very good like balance between how much involved you are and how detached you are. So you could see that as we go through our spiritual journey, we always need to balance between how much we engage with the world around us and how much we can really, link up to our Paramatma and look within. So that's the second one. The third one is Mother Parvati's curse. So what does it really mean? And this is what we also spoke about. So when Mother Parvati gave a curse to Chitraketu, was it really a fall? Or was it actually a step in a positive direction? And as Indulekha Mataji also mentioned right at the start, it was actually a step forward for Chitraketu because it actually made him come closer to coming to becoming fully liberated by taking birth as a demon. The fourth one is around Shiva's teaching. So this is where we spoke about how you can be unshaken by praise or blame. So many of us, we like to get recognized, for the work that we have done. So, and if, people don't recognize us, we get into, some, depression, or we expect, praises to come our way. Or if somebody, blames us, then, we don't like to hear that. So we don't like to hear somebody, say, oh, Madan, I think you did that wrong. You'll say, who's this person to tell me that? So that's my first reaction. So the real victory is not avoiding criticism, but as Shiva was, he stayed while Chitraketu was, speaking. So he didn't run away, and he just stayed, and he just stayed equanimous. So that's definitely a learning for us. And towards the end, what does Chitraketu's silence says? So did he like retaliate? Did he blame Mother Parvati? Did he say that you're mistaken, you're completely wrong? No, he did not. He did not argue. He also remained very equanimous. And what that means is that when you are silent, it also like demonstrates like how free you are because you're not allowing the situation outside to like impact you so much. And a good example of this would be like a lotus and the lotus leaves. So when you see a lotus, typically is you can see the surroundings of the lotus. So it's very swampy, it's probably dirty water and all of that. But then you can see how pure it actually how it becomes like a thing of beauty because and we love to see the lotus. I mean, because it's one of the most beautiful of flowers. So it's really the question of and so we're not really worrying about the surroundings. All we're doing is to really focus more on ourselves and like what God has provided to us. So coming to the last part, and so we discussed the literal. We then went down to the ethical and the metaphorical, and the last one is around the transcendental. And for this, there are three verses I picked up because I was just going through the 41 verses, and I was thinking, what verses would probably would really help me connect with Krishna more? And I'm sure many of us may have a different set of three verses, but I think these are the three that I came up with. Can I invite one of you to read this loudly for us? Hima Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Verse 19. In the material world, neither the living entity himself nor others, friends and enemies, are the cause of material happiness and distress. But because of gross ignorance, the living entity thinks that he and others are the cause. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So we have spoken about this. So um, neither the living entity nor others, friends or enemies, are the cause of material happiness or distress. So it's all the Lord's sanction. But because of our ignorance, we think that we are the cause. So we have spoken about this long enough. And I think it was Hema Mataji who had put up her hand, right? So would you want to read this for us?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Devotees, verse 28, devotees solely engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I found this verse and the next verse probably, the most inspiring. So, and verse 28 is kind of is it's a spirit of chapter 18, which is about the perfection of renunciation. So as devotees, what we do is we never fear any condition of life. I mean, whatever sufferings are going, that we go through, because we are only interested in the service of the Lord. And the pure devotees are not even interested in liberation. They're not even asking for liberation. They just ask Krishna, please allow me to, perform devotional service at your lotus feet. They're not worried about that. And a good example of this would be the gopis who even who have done things for Krishna which the Vedic injunctions would never want them to do, because they do it out of pure love for Krishna, where Krishna is not a revered God, but Krishna is very loved and he's almost like one of us. So that's really the spirit in which pure devotees serve. And who would like to read verse 33?
Can I read it? Okay, ma'am.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Who was that?
Shraddha.
Okay, Mataji, please.
Can verse 33.
33, yes. Yeah.
He holds no one as very dear and no one as inimical. He has no one for his own relative and no one is alien to him. Alien to him. He is actually the soul of all living entities. Thus, he is a spacious friend of all living being and is very near and dear to all of them. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Now, this is a beautiful, verse, and we can keep reading this and feel more inspired. So, he holds no one as very dear, and no one is as inimical. So, the Lord has no friend or enemy. So, everyone is the same, and He just fulfills our desires, and that makes us, feel that we are, that He's treating us differently. But it's got to do with our desire, our karmic reactions, etc. So, otherwise, He's completely impartial. He has no one for his own relative and no one is alien to him. So everyone is how can anyone be an alien if because we are all part and parcel of the Lord. So how can we be alien, because he's in us and we are in him. So he's actually the soul of all living entities. So he's the Paramatma. So as a soul, we know this particular body, Kshetrajna, and as a super soul, he knows every body of every living entity, which is the 840, thousand, species that we have. So he knows everything about everyone. We know only about our individual bodies, and but then we have the connection. And then he's the auspicious friend of all living beings and is very dear and near and dear to all of them. The question is, do we feel his presence? Do we love him enough? So those are the questions that verse 33 really brings. So the transcendental, coming back, is how do we really, at the transcendental level, we are really seeing how we can really connect to Krishna, and how can we really, strengthen our love for him. And that's why I picked up these three verses. So because we looked at the literal, which is the the actual story, and then we looked at the ethical, which was around some of the moral dilemmas, and we had some very good discussions on that. And then we had the metaphorical aspect, which is to really say what does this really tell us from a lesson perspective. And then we looked at the transcendental, which is all about developing our relationship with Krishna. I had a few reflection questions. I don't know if you have maybe 5 minutes or so. But what I wanted to do was let's reflect on what we discussed today and think about these three questions, and maybe we can have maybe one volunteer each to just answer. I mean, if you feel comfortable answering. So when I speak the truth, how mindful am I of its impact on others? Would anybody like to?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
So sometimes when we speak the truth, we are not mindful about others, about the impact it has on others. Our aim is to tell the truth, but the truth also has a way to be told. We should know that we are not hurting anybody by telling the truth. We should put the truth in a way that the message is passed, but the listener is not hurt. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, thank you so much. So it's just not about speaking the truth, but how you speak the truth and how do you say that is quite important. Hima Mataji?
I would say that you treat everyone as if they're a particle of Krishna. So if you can have that kind of level of respect to be authentic within yourself, I think authenticity is quite big because you have to have some sort of vulnerability to speak the truth. And if you've got that, then it helps to be at one with someone as well.
Yeah. Always think of, like as if you are looking at speaking to a fellow soul. So the moment you see Krishna, the Paramatma within his or her, within him or her, then then you can really tailor your messages and try not to harm or harm or be insensitive to the other person. Thank you so much. Shakti Mataji?
Hare Krishna, no, I'm a guy.
Okay.
Right.
My apologies.
No, it's okay.
Shakti Prabhu.
So just some thoughts that are coming to my mind with this first question. Often when we're talking about devotional qualities, just by the descriptions, I start imagining someone who's very softly spoken and someone who is like very mellow and someone who's sort of very malleable, like these kind of qualities come to my mind. But if you look at sort of many examples in the Shastras, the quality of being truthful has this, it doesn't always mean that you're... I think someone's on.
Sorry, do you have someone? Okay,
Yeah,
let us unmute them. Yeah, okay.
it's okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, if you think of someone like Hanumanji in Sundarkand, when he heads over and he's then facing Ravan, he's speaking the truth, but he's not weak. He's very strong. He's very direct. He's very he's very humble, but in that humility is a huge amount of strength, and in that strength comes this self-confidence. And so the truth, often we're in situations when that truth is relative, but in Hanuman, obviously in Leela, it's absolute. But I'm just thinking about that and how in his example, his character, he's got all the guns and siddhis in him. Yet when he speaks the truth, he's soft and humble to devotees. But then when he's challenged against, in irreligion and in righteous situations, he stands out and he's very bold. So these are the kind of thoughts I'm just thinking about with this.
Thank you so much, Shakti Prabhu. I think very well, and I would definitely agree around being humble is not really a sign of weakness. It's you can still be very, very strong. So it's really about knowing when to rise up. So for example, if there's something really unfair that's happening, then you will not hesitate to, fight against it. Or one example that Prabhupada always, has spoken about, which I think, some of you may have read, is as a way we normally do not like violence as devotees. We try not to get involved in violence. So if you are like walking on like on a dark night, and then we have like some dacoits or some thieves harassing an old woman, then what would you do? Will you say that, oh, you know what, I think violence is not good, and I'm just a devotee, so I should not really worry about it? But no, that's not it. So you can still be humble, but then when the occasion arises, when the rightful time comes, then you have to you have to take the responsibility of fighting something which is unfair. So and yeah, and humility is not a sign of weakness at all. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. The second question, how do I respond when I feel misunderstood or unfairly judged? So when somebody criticizes me, how do I feel? How do I respond? I find it very difficult. I mean, personally to me, because I'm a very, I'm generally quite sensitive, and I have been trying to like overcome that. But whenever anybody gives some constructive feedback, I can feel, like a beast, stinging in my ears, and I can, like feel perspiration, and I can just say, "Oh my God, why is this happening to me?" So I go through all those things, and at that point of time, it doesn't even strike me that I should be equanimous. But that's me. So, Geeta Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
I
Krishna.
feel exactly the same, Prabhuji. Then I realize it is not, I'm just not the body. I need to look at it from a different direction. But sometimes it's very difficult to understand in that angle, because it's the material world, and we need to make sure that what the intention was and why it was done. And if nobody is able to understand that, that is called misunderstanding, isn't it, Prabhuji?
Yes, indeed. So I think it's always about, like stepping back and saying, what can I learn from the situation? Because we may be seeing things from our perspective, but it's good to really understand, the other person's perspective. And then when we become a bit more conscious of that, then we can also our response to that can be quite different than what our first step is. So there is always, always talk about this difference between a response and a reaction.
But what if it's a regular situation like that? That's not going to help, isn't it?
Indeed, because like
Yeah.
for example, we spend so much of our time with our partners, with our
Yeah.
children. So I think when things become very repetitive, then I think one has to, as we mentioned, speak the truth, be firm with speaking the truth, but then like do that with tact and with compassion.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Indulekha Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji. So misunderstanding, we should know how to clear misunderstanding, like voicing out what we meant when we were talking, and then being judged unfairly. For that, I don't care. Whatever you judge, because that is your perception. I am not that way. That is your perception. But misunderstanding, I will clear it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. So moving on to the last one, which is, has there been a situation in my life that felt like a setback or a curse, but later it revealed itself as a turning point for growth or devotion? Does anybody have any experiences? I personally can speak of one. So the circumstances that got me to coming to the manor was not a very positive thing, because at that point of time I did have I did lose my job, so I was going through a bit of a tough time, and then I got posted in Sweden, and that led to a lot of turmoil within the within the family around how can so there was a point of time when my wife and son was like in UK, and then I was in Sweden, and I was kind of thinking, oh gosh, this is really not, I mean, why is the lot testing us so much, because we are living apart as a family. But those circumstances actually got me closer to Krishna consciousness. So it seemed a fall at that point of time. It seemed a very difficult, serious adversity, and there were lots of like days when I was feeling extremely frustrated and angry at what was happening. But now I realize that those were completely unfounded. I should have just at that point of time trusted the Lord to take care of me, and He did. So, Geeta Mataji, did you?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
The second question applies to me. Because of the second question, I think I have come to the third one. Otherwise, I really would not have been in that position at all. I would have been completely entangled and would have been really very happy with the material world and would have stayed there, would not have come out of that entanglement at all. But it is a blessing in disguise.
Absolutely, and that can only come when we take some time to reflect on some of the situations. So, giving ourselves a bit of that quiet space, for reflection, saying, "Why is this happening to me?" And then looking inward, can give you a lot of the answers because and praying to Krishna to give you, to give you the intelligence to understand the situation better. So I think when we do that, it really helps a lot.
Yes,
I can see
Prabhuji,
Shama
thank you
Mataji.
so much.
Yeah, thank you. I can see Shama Mataji had put some, yeah, King Parikshit also accepted the curse given by Rishi. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Any questions, any reflections on today's discussion? So just to quickly sum up, this was the Citraketu as a pure devotee went to Sumeru mountain, and then he laughed at like Lord Shiva and Mother Pārvatī. The reactions were very, very different. And so this entire chapter really delves into the reaction of Citraketu, Lord Shiva, Mother Pārvatī, and then understanding how this particular situation played out, and how all of this is part of the plan, and it gives us a lot of like things to reflect on as we saw today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Jai Mataji, I think Jai Mataji's hand is up.
Thank you, Prabhuji. No, for me, it was, I was just thinking about, respecting other people's viewpoints, because sometimes we feel we are always right. But sometimes when we put ourselves in their situation, they could be seeing things from a different perspective. The analogy that has been used many a times in, I don't know whether it's in Bhagavatam or somewhere else, where three people, they're seeing a train and all seeing differently, but they're all right in their own way. Yeah. That's what I would like to say about this. That we can't always say we are right. Yes, there may be times, but we have to respect other people's viewpoint as well.
Yes, absolutely. So depending on where you're on the platform, you could actually see just the smoke and the light, or you could see the train or the carriages, or you could see actually passengers coming out, where you see the purpose as well. So yeah, and everybody's right. So the question is, whose perspective is really right? Probably no one's. Thanks, Jai Mataji. Kusuma Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. It's when we get really friendly with devotees, and then sometimes we'll say something we didn't like. It isn't malicious. Same as Citraketu, he wasn't malicious when he laughed. So it like we have to be very, very careful, like before we open our mouth, because we don't want to offend devotees or anybody for that matter. So that's the lesson I learned, that like Mother Pārvatī, she quickly kind of, cursed Citraketu. She didn't look at the background or anything. She just cursed him because laughing. But we have to be very, very careful because, we don't want to offend devotees. That's my thought.
Yeah, very true, Mataji. And we could be devotees, all of us are aspiring, but then that happens all the time. I do remember when, as Bhakti Vriksha, we started going and doing kitchen service. So that was in the manor, and apparently, I mean, I didn't know this because I just heard about it. There was one Mataji, who was quite strict, and she would like give instructions to devotees, and they would feel a bit um uncomfortable because it would not be said in the most polite manner. So I'm sure Mataji is probably doing what's right in terms of serving the Lord with, and the devotees with the visitors, but then how she was saying it, I think probably like could have done with some change. So Chanu Mataji.
So when I'm hearing about this Citraketu and how Mother Pārvatī cursed him, I related to the same, like how Parikshit Maharaj, he went and then he was cursed by Rishi Shringi. So if we see the both were like pure devotees, but means in no way he could have reacted in that way, Parikshit Maharaj, but it was all circumstantial and all like will of the Lord. It was not that he had something means he was wrong in any way.
Yeah.
So similarly here, even though Maharaj Citraketu was a pure devotee, it was like how we say that it is a pastime of the Lord, where like as you explained, or Mataji explained that because Lord wanted him to come back to him, so he had and how the Lord said to Narad Muni that you are not yet pure, so you have some more time to come back to me. In the same way, he had some more things to complete before he goes back, and that's why all this happened, so that he could go and then he get purified so that he could go back to the Lord again.
Absolutely. So Charumataji, you summed up, this very well. So the Lord's plan for Chitraketu was that come to me, and this is really the purification process. And but while the purification process goes on, there is huge opportunity for us to learn from from some of the dilemmas. And I think thanks for sharing for all the devotees like who really shared about like those questions. And that's when we start linking up what the Bhagavatam says with our personal lives, and what can we really learn, and how we can like purify our hearts like in our journey towards becoming a pure devotee. So that really is what this chapter is all about. So thank you so much, and thanks for your participation. I hope you found this these discussions useful. So please do reflect on them, and I'll hand over to Dharmendra Prabhu for any announcements.
Okay, thank you very much, Madan Prabhu, for a very interactive class. As you can see, a lot of people were getting involved, and that's amazing. I did have 2 questions, if that's okay. I usually write down my questions, and I was hoping that I'd be able to get them through, if it's all right. And maybe you've answered them, but the first reflection question, when you said, when I speak the truth, I think the question I have is, how do you know that you're speaking the truth, especially nowadays in Kali Yuga? So it's an implied term that you are speaking the truth, but you may not be.
The truth has become very relative. It depends on who's saying it, right? I mean, I think it's I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to this, but I would say that my personal strategy would be to verify whatever I'm saying, whether it's really true or not. So I think having that checks and balance within yourself, because you can think it's a truth, and a classic example could be some of the news that you've heard, or some of the um, events. And today we are so bombarded by lots of messages, and then we allow that to influence like our thinking as well. So so when you're speaking something, and just verify the facts, ensure that it's from an authorized source, and when it comes to spiritual aspects, please make sure that you are reading books, as an example, from like from Prabhupada, because because Prabhupada comes from an authorized source, which can be linked up to right up to Krishna, and you can't really say the same of some other translations, because those could be interpretations, those could be opinions. So we need to use our intelligence to classify what is truth versus what is opinions, what is views, because those could be very, very contextual, those could be very, very individual, those could be very, very different. So I would say use your intelligence each time, and then you'll find the answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu. And the second part is obviously is just about the three levels. Now, the literal and ethical and metaphorical, I think you can establish that from reading the verses. But what do you actually look for when you're trying to look for the transcendental verses in each chapter? What is the theme that you're trying to pick away to identify the transcendental aspects?
That's an interesting question. I read through the 41 verses, and I felt connected, my heart felt connected with those 3 verses. And so I just picked them up. So, and it may not necessarily be the same, because Prabhuji, when you actually read through that, there may be some other 3 verses. But I was asking myself, should I pick more than 3, or should I just pick up 3? Then I said, let me pick up only 3 and find out whether I can do that. And I was able to do it. And so I would say one is listen to your heart, because usually your heart, if it has the desire, will guide you to the right verses. The other one is when I read those verses, do I feel inspired to, to grow my bhakti, to grow my devotion? And is there something, like in those verses that, removes my, my darkness, my ignorance? And I think if I have those two, if I apply those, 2 criteria, then I think, those 3 verses would definitely stand out. But that's my personal choice of 3 verses.